Welcome everyone to this webinar brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Abitchonistim. IDSF is a movement of reserve officers and operators from all branches of the Israel Defense Establishment who believe that strong national security priorities and staunch Zionism are necessary for Israel to be the eternal homeland of the Jewish people. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters who are tuning in every day to these war briefings. It is very important to us at IDSF that you have the opportunity to hear directly from the source, experts in Israel on the ground who know what is going on and can share their opinions and analysis with you in these very direct and candid briefings. General Avivi was unfortunately called away and is not able to join us right now. We are in a war, and as much as these briefings are critical, actually defending Israel is, of course, the top priority. So we're joined today by Josh Reinstein and Danny Seaman, who is back with us again. Josh Reinstein has been the director of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus since its inception in 2004. He is also the president of the Israel Allies Foundation. Mr. Reinstein is the producer and founder of the hit TV show Israel Now News that is broadcast to 35 million viewers in 191 countries around the world. He recently launched a second TV show called Land of the Bible. He was named as one of the 50 most influential Jews in the world by the Jerusalem Post. Mr. Reinstein also owns and operates JSR International Marketing, an international marketing and public relations firm based in Israel. It is a pleasure to have Josh with us today. Danny Seaman, who you may recall from last week when he joined us, was the director of the Israel Government Press Office for 10 years, IDF spokesperson to the Foreign Press Office during the Oslo process, and a senior official in the Prime Minister's Office for Public Diplomacy. He's the author of the book Israel and the Foreign Media. He also worked extensively on behalf of IDSF in outreach to the international Christian community. Danny, we're going to start with you, if that's okay, for the security briefing and the update in this war. And specifically, the other day, Hamas released a video of 3 hostages. And that video was then shared widely on social media and Jewish WhatsApp groups, Israeli WhatsApp groups. It made its way all the way to the front page of a number of Israel news outlets. And then many of the news outlets removed it from their page and tried not to share it. Are you able to maybe explain a little bit about what happened and what the implications are and what we consumers of media should be doing with these types of videos?
Yeah, of course, these are the things I'm more familiar with. I can just give a short update on the military aspects of the past 24 hours. Amir could probably give greater insights, but we had 2 significant events today, besides the regular missiles falling here and targeting Israeli civilian areas. The Houthis today in Taiman, in Yemen, declared that they're joining the battle. And they've been firing missiles in the direction of Israel for the past week, but these have been intercepted in the past 24 hours as well. Were intercepted both by Saudi Arabian military and the U.S. Navy that are in the Red Sea. Today, Israel was able to intercept and shoot down an unmanned aircraft that was on its way to Eilat and prevented that from doing any damage here. So that was one of the significant things. The other thing is that our ground assault, which actually began day before yesterday, took a much larger direction in the past 24 hours since last night. We moved in much greater forces and in the direction, at least from what is being reported by international media, to cutting the Gaza Strip in half and having our forces move into the areas of northern Gaza, into the neighborhoods, and start taking out Hamas positions that are still there. So those were the military aspects. And as I said in my briefing last week, we all know that the very much part of the war and the battlefield today is the cognitive warfare, the information aspects of it, or the propaganda war. And here we have more than propaganda. We have a propaganda terrorism that is trying to be applied by the Hamas against Israel and Israeli citizens. They've been trying, especially with the hostages that they're holding, they're trying to work on the nerves of the Israeli public and trying to deflate us. There were talks last week of very serious negotiations for the release. They sat down, at least it was said that they sat down a condition, and we were informed by Qatar, who are the supporters and backers of Hamas. And the Emirate of Qatar told us that in return for all the prisoners being held by Israel right now, there's a chance of them releasing all the hostages being held. Today, the director of the Prime Minister's security cabinet, Tzachi Hanegbi, I'm not sure what the translation of his government position is into English, but he gave a briefing saying that it ended up these negotiations with Qatar were a farce. There was no serious. It was just to divert our attention, just like they're supporting Al Jazeera, just like they're supporting the Hamas. It's very much part of the terrorist propaganda effort on the part of Hamas. Qatar was joined in this, and to try to deflate the Israeli public. So yesterday, they released this film very quickly, and it wasn't clear why they were releasing this so quickly, of 3 Israeli women who were saying things. I'm not going to even repeat it, because anybody sharing these things, anybody discussing these things, it's only is assisting the efforts on the part of Hamas in their psychological terrorism that they're trying to apply to Israel. So I was happy to see that most Israelis in the social media did not share it. Most Israelis did not join in this. Some of the media, unfortunately, did it and very quickly understood that they are sharing and they are being manipulated by Hamas to do this, to try to affect the Israelis. We then realized in the evening that the reason they used this very quickly is that they had known what Israelis only found out a few hours later, and it happened the night before. Israel was able to free at least one of the hostages, a soldier who was taken hostage on the first day. She was in an amazing, that we can't even at this moment can't reveal what happened there. Israel was able, through the use of our intelligence organizations and our commandos, were able to free her, eliminate those who were holding her hostage, and bring her home to her family. I get excited just talking about it right now, because it was a huge boost for the Israeli public here, for the family itself in the town of Kiryat Gat, where she's from. People left their homes and celebrated outside her house. It's a feeling that one of our children was being, in this case, one of our soldiers was released, and it's such a good feeling of unity here for all of us, giving us hope. We know that there are difficult days ahead. We know that they're being held hostage by a murderous, horrible organization who will be manipulating our feelings over it. But this, for a few moments, for one evening, we all felt finally, not only with the fact that she was released, but also that if on the first few days, and at least in the first few hours, our intelligence took a severe blow, our security forces took a severe blow, we are very quickly back on top of things. Both the Mossad, the Shabak, the military intelligence, all of them are on top of the game again, and we're able to bring this huge success for Israel at the moment, and sending them a clear message that what we're telling them and what we've told them for the past 3.5 weeks, almost 4 weeks, is that we are going to eliminate all of you. We're going to take you out. We know where you are. We know who you are. Every single one of you. You are targeted by us now. It's no longer your game. It is our game right now. Never again is now. You made the mistake of screwing around with the Jewish people. You had a success. Initially, we are going to be showing with you right now to the rest of the world why Israel is no longer weak. The Jewish people are no longer victims that can be screwed around with. So this is the message that comes out today. And this is a message through their terrorism, also their psychological terrorism, is not going to work. We are very dedicated to this battle. We are very clear in what we have to do. They can try to get the rest of the world organized against us. It is not going to work. We are not backing off. We are going to go through with what we intended to do. It's not only the government of Israel, it's the people of Israel saying it very clearly. We are going to annihilate our enemy. It's clear as the daylight is here. So that's basically what has happened in the past 24 hours. And hopefully we'll have good news as the rest of the days move on.
Thank you so much, Danny. We're going to go now to Josh Reinstein, director of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus. Josh, this war is not just fought on the battlefield with weapons, it's fought in government offices and parliaments around the world. What can you tell us is happening right now on the diplomatic front?
Well, thank you, Moshe. Yeah, just to give you a background a little bit about what we've done over the last 20 years to prepare us for this moment. As you mentioned, I'm the director of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus, and the caucus was established in 2004 in an effort to build direct lines of communication and cooperation with Christian leaders around the world. We realized it was Christians, not countries, that were standing with Israel, and we had to find a way to work together with Christians in order to mobilize support for Israel. And in 2006, in Washington, D.C., in Congress, they decided to launch our first sister caucus, the Congressional Israelites Caucus. It's made up of Republicans and Democrats who support Israel. And that led to a domino effect of caucuses being started in parliaments all over the world. Today, we have 53 Israel Allies caucuses in our network, over 1,500 legislators. And what they do is what we call faith-based diplomacy. It's when people take their biblical support for Israel and turn it into real political action. Over the last few years, you've seen faith-based diplomacy all over the world. In fact, faith-based diplomacy is the most important weapon Israel has in its diplomatic arsenal. There are embassies now in Jerusalem because of faith-based diplomacy. Christian support led to anti-BDS legislation in 37 states in America, anti-Semitism legislation around the world. It's even the reason we have observer status in the African Union. So we are seeing incredible success from working with Christian allies around the world. And as you mentioned before, in war, there's the military front, there's the media front, but no less important, maybe even more important, is the diplomatic front. And what we've done is we've used our network of 1,500 legislators to build a iron dome, a diplomatic iron dome around Israel. And what we've seen over the last 3 weeks has been astonishing. We've seen legislators come together and take stands for Israel in individual countries. Now, a lot of people are looking around and saying, hey, what's happening at the UN? But the UN is a loser. We don't have the votes in the UN. We never will. The majority of countries in the UN are dictators and tyrants. But in individual countries, we have a huge opportunity to create a political situation where they do stand with Israel, and that's what we're doing. We're seeing political rallies and Christian rallies all over the world, from Liberia to Uganda to Australia to Moldova to Guatemala, a real showing of support. Christians are taking to the streets, and they're putting pressure on their religious leaders to put pressure on their political leaders to stand with Israel. And so we've been launching a number of different initiatives, but the main initiative we're working on now, and was just released today, was a resolution calling for sanctions of Iran. Everyone knows that Iran is the director of this whole fight. Iran funds, gives military training, supports Hamas, Hezbollah in the north. Also, Danny mentioned about the Houthis in Yemen. This is all being coordinated by Iran, and it was coordinated by Iran at this time specifically because they were trying to throw off the peace deal that Israel was going to sign with Saudi Arabia. And so they've been coordinating this. There's been reports that 500 of the Hamas attackers were training in Iran. They've had 4 meetings in the month leading up to the attack, yet no one is talking about Iran. This is all Iran. And indeed, in this fight, if we were going to do it right, we're not only going to have to take out Hamas and Hezbollah, but we're going to have to take out Iran's nuclear capabilities. So we launched a resolution in 15 European countries, including the EU, to sanction Iran, to put the RAJC, the Revolutionary Guard, on their terror list, like America did in 2019. We're doing a similar resolution in the United States Congress. And we're pushing this around Latin America and Africa. We're putting a big press on putting the pressure on Iran. There's a lot of pressure on Israel right now, but the pressure should really be with Iran. When you talk about what does Israel need right now, it's 2 things. Number one, it needs time. This isn't going to be a short battle. We're going to have to not only uproot all of Hamas, wipe out the terror tunnels, release the hostages, completely decimate all the membership of Hamas. But then we're going to have to turn our attention to Hezbollah. Hezbollah has 150,000 guided missiles pointed at our communities. They potentially could do a terror attack 100 times the size of what we've seen in October 7th. So people need to be patient and give Israel the time. And secondly, we need resolve. Our leaders need to have the resolve to get the job done. We can't allow this situation to continue the way it was. And so in order to get the time and strengthen our leadership to have the resolve, we need diplomatic support. And that's really where Christians come into play here. Our Ruby Rivlin, when he was the Speaker of the Knesset in our first meeting, said that there are 1 billion Christians and 14 million Jews, but together we're 1,014 million. And that's really what we're seeing. We're seeing support in countries where there are no Jewish populations because Christians are coming out and standing for Israel. And we're also seeing an unprecedented burst of activity between Jews and Christians around the world. We're seeing that at rallies. I've spoken at over 100 church services and rallies over the last 3 weeks. And we've seen Jewish leaders together with Christian leaders standing with Israel arm in arm. So it's exciting to see this incredible boost of support from the Christian community. We're using our diplomatic network to not just pressure Iran, but to pressure Qatar. We just released a resolution through the Congressional Israelite Caucus about the statements of the president of Turkey, who called Hamas freedom fighters. But one of the good things that came about this conflict and the war right now is that the lines have been drawn very clearly. Either you're on the sides of people who bake babies in ovens and rape women and send the videos to their families and abduct Holocaust survivors, or you're not. So the lines have been drawn very clearly, and now we can understand who's the bad guy, who's not the bad guy. When people say free Palestine, it's the polite way to say, let's kill all the Jews. And now it's coming out. We're seeing that in the university campuses in America. We're seeing it with the squad in Congress. We're seeing it with the extreme left in Europe and the hundreds of thousands of people that are rallying and ripping down the posters of the hostages. So right now, it's easier to know the difference between good and evil than ever before. And our alliance is dedicated to defending Judeo-Christian values around the world. I'd like to open it up to questions, but before that, just to mention that, and as a practicing Jew, one of the things that's been very heartening to me is to see how many people are coming back to Judaism and to God. One of the first emergency requests that I received was funding to get 60,000 pairs of tzitzit to our soldiers. There's the saying there's no atheists in the foxhole, but people are really turning to God in Israel. And I think that's happening around the world as well, because we know that God is in control and we know that God fights with us. When we don't fight, then we're on our own. But when we fight, God always comes before us. So that is a message that is not just resonating with Jewish people, but with Christian people who believe in the Bible as well. And we're seeing the results through faith-based diplomacy.
I think you very much spoke to why Israel needs Christian support. But maybe if I could flip the question backwards, why do Christians want to support Israel? And maybe another perspective, this war on Hamas, is Hamas targeting Israel? Is it targeting the West? Is it targeting Christianity and Christians as well?
Well, I mean, from a religious point of view, Christians support Israel because God made a covenant with Abraham, and they believe it's an everlasting covenant. They see the fulfillment of prophecy right before our very eyes in Israel through the ingathering of the exiles from the north and the south and the east and the west. The deserts have bloomed. We become a light unto the nations through our technology. So they see all these things happening and what God is doing in Israel, and they want to be a part of that. From a practical point of view, you're 100% right, Moshe. They understand that first it's the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. The Hamas leadership came out very forcefully and said, look, our goal is to first wipe out Israel, and then we're coming after all the Christians around the world. And so this is something that is very well understood. And you also have to understand that the big genocides that we've seen in the last decade are not against Jews, they're against Christians. In Northern Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia, millions of Christians have been killed just for being Christians. So they are feeling the heat as well. And I think that they understand that Jews and Christians need to unite. And what we're seeing is actually very clear battle lines being drawn. It's Jews and Christians who believe in the Bible on one side, and it's those who hate the Bible and hate the God of Israel on the other side. That's why we see this unholy alliance of radical Islam with extreme atheists. You know, they have absolutely nothing in common. They don't agree on any different issue other than their hatred of Israel. So we're seeing the lines been drawn, and Jews and Christians are coming together like never before.
Okay. Someone asked a question about the Pope. Maybe you could help us understand the Pope's recent statement on Gaza, and if not, his recent statements in general. What influence does the Pope or the Catholic Church have in Christians around the world in support for Israel?
Well, obviously, this current Pope has been very weak on the issue of Israel. He's hasn't condemned the violence. He mostly calls for ceasefires, which is just asking Israel to give up. And so I don't think that there is any reason to listen to what the Pope is saying today. But we are seeing an emergence of Catholics standing with Israel like never before. A lot of Catholics are going back to the roots of Christianity, and they understand, where the religion comes from. But you also have to understand that Catholics believe in something called replacement theology, where they believe, unlike Bible-believing Christians or evangelicals, they believe that they actually replaced Israel, and now the covenant between God and Abraham is between the government, between God and the church. And so inherently, there is this feeling of animosity towards the Jewish people, especially as God is revealing himself through all his miracles and prophecies here in the land of Israel. So what we're seeing is a lot of Catholics are understanding what God is doing in Israel and moving towards the side of Israel, but it hasn't taken shape at the top leadership yet.
Okay, now I lived for many years in Texas and South Carolina, so I'm a little bit familiar with the Southern Christians who are supportive of Israel. But maybe you could speak a little bit about outside of the U.S., because I know you have some very impressive figures about Christian communities outside of the U.S., what they're doing for Israel. Maybe you can just share some of that so we understand it's a much bigger picture.
Look, if you just look at the embassies that are in Jerusalem today, including the U.S. Embassy, these are all movements of Bible-believing Christians who made this an official policy within their governments. So if you take out Kosovo, who moved their embassy because of a recognition deal, Papua New Guinea, Honduras, Guatemala, all these countries moved their embassies because of faith-based diplomacy. All the 7 countries that said they're moving their embassies now, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Malawi, Fiji, these are all Christian countries too. So as I mentioned at the beginning, it's Christians, not countries, that are standing with Israel, and they're pushing their government to act like never before. We've seen incredible support in Africa. There's actually a Christian bloc for the first time supporting Israel. We're seeing incredible support in Latin America. In some of these countries, there's over 50% evangelical Christians there. Look at Brazil, for example. Brazil, the last president, Bolsonaro, was the head of the evangelicals there. He was fiercely pro-Israel, because what's happened since 1948 in Brazil? Well, in 1948, Brazil was 100% Catholic. Today, there are 60 million evangelicals living in Brazil, and they've been able to turn that into a political force for Israel. So the numbers are growing all the time, and the support is getting bigger and bigger. Also within our network, we're seeing that people who were members of parliament have grown up within their own parliament. So one of the chairs of the Congressional Israelite Caucus became vice president, Mike Pence. Mike Pompeo was a member of our caucus who worked on the Iran issue. Ron DeSantis was a member of our caucus. But that pattern is followed everywhere. The president of Malawi was the chairman of the Malawian Parliamentary Israelites Caucus. The former Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, was the deputy chair of the Australian Parliamentary Israelites Caucus. The foreign minister of Estonia, the defense minister of Romania, and so on and so on and so on. So as these people grow within their networks, the support and influence gets bigger and bigger.
Okay, we have among our viewers many Jews, many Christians, people of all faith, and a question came up, and I want to ask this question because I think it's critical to respond to this. The Christians who support Israel, are they doing so? And I'm going to say it the way the question came in. Are they doing so because they have some type of nefarious goal in mind for the Jewish people? They have ulterior motives in why they're supporting Israel. Again, I'm saying it the way it's coming in so you can properly respond to this and share with us your expertise.
Look, the majority of Bible-believing Christians support us because they believe that's what the God of Israel wants them to do. They believe in the Bible. Of course, they believe in the New Testament, and as Jews, we don't. We believe in the Talmud. but they believe in what they call the Old Testament, the Tanakh. And because of that, they believe very forcefully that God is standing with Israel, and they want to be on God's side. That's why they stand with Israel. But that whole idea of the nefarious support argument is also a little bit ridiculous, and I'll tell you why. If you're Jewish and you believe in Judaism, as I do, then you don't believe that what they believe is going to happen when the Messiah comes. Okay, the whole argument is that they believe that when the Messiah comes, then 1/3 of the Jews will be killed and all these different things. But as a practicing Jew, you don't believe that. Also, if you want to be honest, Jews believe some things are going to happen when the Messiah comes as well. So I think if that's the best argument about this nefarious idea of supporting Israel because they're going to wait until Messiah comes and then something's going to happen, I don't think that's a legitimate concern. I think we'll both have to see who was right at the end. And as a practicing Jew and the Jews who are watching, I think they're pretty steadfast in the fact that they are. And as Christians, I think they are. So we'll just have to see who's right.
Okay, Josh, thank you for setting the record straight on that. We have another question coming in about the big churches in Europe not being pro-Israel. How does that impact your work?
Well, again, a lot of the churches that we're seeing in Western Europe are mainline churches that believe that they have replaced Israel. So we're seeing a lot of these mainline churches, Catholics, Methodists, Anglican Church, Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox. They believe that God did away with the covenant between Abraham and God, and now the covenant's with the church. So yes, we're seeing a lot of animosity from these churches, but for the most part, these churches are now empty. A lot of them are actually being turned into mosques, unfortunately. But in the Bible-believing community, they believe that the covenant between Abraham and God is forever. It's an everlasting covenant, and they believe that they're grafted into this covenant. So the success of Israel is paramount in their theological beliefs. And as evangelical Christianity grows, and we're seeing this mostly in Eastern Europe, we're seeing more and more support. So it's true that we're seeing a lot of decline in support from Western Europe, but at the same time, we're benefiting from the growth of support from Eastern Europe.
This is also fascinating. I feel like we could be here for hours, but Josh, I know you have a packed schedule and we're almost running out of time. So Danny, we're going to go back to you. If you have any final thoughts for us on these issues, and then Josh will come to you for final thoughts, and then we'll call it a day.
Just to share with you all that I just got a quick message from my son who's in the paratroopers, and he just says he's okay. Couldn't get back to him. I guess they just wanted to let us know. So sharing that with all of you. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
That's more important. I think that's enough.
Yeah, no, but I just want to let our those participating know that we understand the importance of the bond between the Jews and the Christians, especially in this fight, not only theologically, but also in practically on the ground here. And therefore, the IDSF last year began expanding our relationship with the Christian community, evangelical community, with the Christian embassy here in Jerusalem, understanding that these are our allies, and also to bring it to the attention of Israelis how strongly the Christian community around the world is supporting and assisting Israel. And it's clear to them that we all know that we're all in this battle together. Israel is only on the front line, and we're going to see this expanding, and we all have to stand together. So the IDSF the Bitchonistim are working very closely, and any of you who want to join us and be a member, we'll be happy for you to reach out to us.
Josh, please, final thoughts.
First of all, I want to thank the Bitchonistim, the Israel Defense and Security Forum. General Avivi is a personal friend. He's been saying a lot of the things that I'm saying, but before the war. If more people listen to General Avivi, I think that we wouldn't be in the situation we are today. And so I want to thank you guys for your leadership. I've been scrolling through the questions, and they're very intelligent, very point on. I put out our website, israelallies.org. If you want to get involved in our diplomatic campaign, if you have other questions, if you want to reach out with ideas, we're always open. And this is a full-time, all the time war right now, and the diplomatic front is no less important. So I thank you all for your support and for coming together for this webinar, and wish you all peace. And stay tuned for what Israel is about to do to our enemies. I think it's going to be a real statement.
Absolutely. Okay, Danny Seaman, Josh Reinstein, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to all of our viewers. Stay strong and stay safe. Take care, everyone.